Okay, so kicking off video 2 of this, I just wrapped up Herschel. Let's go ahead and go here. We'll check out. Okay, again, let me just open. I don't know why. I'm just going to make everything open in QuickTime. I know a lot of people hate it, but it actually gives me a little bit better control over scrubbing and stuff like that. So I think some of this is looking really good. Here, I think maybe your foot's a little too far over, or your weight's a little too far over the. So again, if this is the source and you go straight up, the hips are maybe just a little too much weight over here. So maybe scoot it over a little bit and kind of not shift it over that leg until a frame or two later. But then we get this one feels a little better, I think. Well, yeah, it kind of starts to shift over a little too early, I think. You just need to kind of keep it over here just a little bit longer. So maybe you get this instead of where it is here. And then so you would have your center of weight here, and then your giant dinosaur head, and then your foot up. And so that's maybe a little too much, but you get the idea. So kind of just keeping it shifted over just a little bit more. Yeah, you can kind of see there. It's like the weight feels right now like it's going straight down here, but since this is where the foot is, I could just feel like it needs to be shifted over a little bit, so it's a little closer to this line, and so this leg feels like it's a little bit more free to move. And so yeah, just tweak with that just a little bit more. The only other thing I would say is a lot of the motions in this feel like they're all kind of happening at the same time again. These steps actually look pretty good. You kind of get a little bit of this drag in the head, but then like here, the head kind of always stays sort of perfectly straight. And so just sort of dipping the head, leading with the head just a little bit in that motion would really kind of beef it up a little bit and make it a little bit more clean and appealing. So let's go on now. Open with QuickTime. Okay, so we're gonna kind of see similar things here as well. That's not bad. It's an effort at it. You can kind of see that you get the well, maybe I don't do that. If we draw this here and draw this straight up, I didn't really do straight up very well, did I? You'll see that you got a decent amount of the weight you tried to shift over here. I think it still needs to go a little further because you still had a big chunk over here that's kind of pulling it to this side. Part of that maybe could be fixed because like if you look at your hips, this hip is lower than this hip. And I think if you had your hips more like this, and then the ball kind of like this, then maybe that would feel a little bit more in balance. It's the fact that this hip is lower even though it's lifting. And that feels like that just feels a little off. And so we can... You did pretty good here that you shift over that leg. It feels like this motion happens in a straight line though. I could just go straight across here. And what I have a tendency to do is dip it a little bit. And so the reason for that is because like when you're up on one leg, you're kind of high. So you're up on this leg, you're high. You're up on the other leg here, you would be high. But when you're taking the step across, you kind of have to dip just a little bit. So the center of your gravity may be there, and so that would just kind of make a little bit of an arc. So that's kind of my thinking there. Right now, just kind of so I kind of go straight across. I think if you just dipped a little bit right here in the center, that would help. Again, low hip on the wrong side a little bit. I think this hip can drive upward a little bit because of that force, but then when this leg comes off the ground, this hip wants to pick it up. And then I think you shift your weight back over a little too early, because right here, like if if this is the support of our weight, and we draw straight up. I'm not drawing a very straight line today, am I? You see how much of it is over here, still kind of pulling down on that weight. So I think playing around with that would really help. It also just feels a little stiff, like, you know, when the foot picks up here, it feels like it's the foot kind of acting by itself, not being influenced by any of the body. So I think, you know, really that idea of like having it feel like this is moving as a system, and a lot of that would come with just like the fact that there's no rotation or major movement at all. And there's a little bit of rotation right as the character picks up its foot, but really it's kind of stays pretty, you know, pretty much the same. So really think about this in the entire character pose sort of way, and I think that would really help it quite a bit. Okay. This one's looking pretty good. I think you're getting pretty good weight on it. I don't know, I just don't do this automatically every time. So if we drag through here and look at it, yeah, you can kind of see here, you got some pretty good weight with, feels like your weight is over this hip, your other hip is sort of pulling up to push off. You're getting a lot of little stuff, like the toes blowing through here, and things like that. I actually see it on this one as well. The toes kind of sink through the floor there. And some of that's going to be just a complication of this. This isn't the best rig in the world, but you kind of have to go through there and look at that. I feel like the character pushes off here, but doesn't continue to go forward. So I feel like it needs to push a touch more over that leg there just to free that leg up. It's very subtle, like it would just be a little bit, and like instead of there, maybe it would be here or something. And it's just more than anything, it's because the character doesn't move too much from here all the way through all that. And it's almost more like it needs somewhere to go. It needs to like go a little bit further just for that purpose of moving or having a place to go directionally. Couple of little things here. So when we talk about sort of like how uncomfortable this bend here feels. And so really, like, if you could kind of roll it up on the side of the foot or take the knee in, like there's something here in this pose that just these two shapes feel just a little awkward. And I don't know exactly how to, like I would have to play around with the rig and play around with the pose to kind of get it working right. But I feel like the line of action you're going for in this feels like this. And so this little jagged spot kind of hanging out here just kind of works against that. If that makes sense. So let's see. But I like the anticipation before this look. I would wonder if you could even dip it a little bit more right in through here. So right now the character's arc kind of goes like that. Maybe even not that deep. It may do something like that, right? If you were to track like the center of its head or something. And I wonder if instead you could do something that starts a little further back and dips a little earlier and goes like that. I don't know. I would play with it, see if you could just push it a little lower, a little earlier, and see what that gives you. It will just increase that arc and make it just a little bit deeper and a little bit more appealing. So, otherwise, this is looking pretty good. I don't know if this is the Monty rig or what, but we're getting a lot of this weird stuff going on in here and even in here. Also, that knee feels like it's maybe pointing out just a touch too much there. So there's a lot of little things that we can kind of play around with in the rig, just to, like, no rig is going to deform perfectly, so sometimes you have to just kind of make it look not broken when it's deforming weird. You get that a lot in clavicles. But otherwise, that's looking pretty good. So There we go. QuickTime. Okay. Okay. So we've actually looked at some of this already. You asked for some advice, and so you know about this little hitch there that you have. It's right there. And so cleaning that up, I think, would help. I think you also have some weight shift issues going on right in there too, but you can't see them quite so well from this angle, but you can see something weird is happening there. So I think fixing those would help. Let's kind of look at these here. This is actually looking relatively good here. You kind of got a little bit of an arc issue there. Kind of watch the character's path as it dips down there. It kind of does like that or something, and it's not. It's a little bit hitchy, and so maybe I'd work with that a little bit. Yeah, see, that kind of dips down and then kind of juts over and then steps over. So I think here on this dip, you could also sort of dip it just down a little bit more. And I think you could also consider leading with this leg a little bit more. So right now, it's kind of like the leg hits the ground right about this mid pose, so I'm guessing that there's a keyframe right in there. But just having that leg kind of contacting the ground and even being there for a frame before the body starts to shift over is really helpful in the way that it would deform. You got a couple of little hitches, and this is really just polish in the graph editor. So we look right here, the foot kind of freezes right there for a frame or two. So it goes stop, and it kind of hits there for like 2 frames and just feels like it's locked in place. And so if you were to track that point, what you're going to get is, like in your arc, there's just going to be a little spot where it kind of hesitates. So you get like these points that come through there, and then you get one that's like that right next to it before you move on. And it kind of gets a little bit of a hitch and just feels not smooth and not completely polished. And so you kind of get it there, and then, I feel like as the character gets onto this foot, they should absorb that weight into the foot a little bit more. So you kind of stop on your tiptoes, and then maybe as it comes in, that foot should sort of sink in and then sort of push the character upward a little bit. Instead of just kind of sinks later. Hold it back just a little bit before you shift it over that foot. Just a fraction of a second. And then I think this look and stuff is looking good, minus those little hitches there in the ball. And I think you can kind of play with the weight shift. So again, this one's another one that's looking pretty good. You just need a little bit more loving on the on some of the weight shifts and some of the polish and the details like the feet and stuff like that. Caitlin, open with QuickTime. It's my open with QuickTime song. Okay. This one's got some really nice poses. You got some really nice stuff going on with the character. That looks good. I would consider maybe even pushing him over, or her over, this foot just a little bit more, just so you get a little bit more of a weight shift over when they raise that foot off the ground. And then you kind of have a jump here. I think it's working pretty well, but again, I think you could go over even further over that foot. If we look at this as, I know I keep saying this, we look at this as being the base and like the supporting of this mass. There's so much of this mass over on this side that is not being supported there. So I think that'll help a little bit. Let's keep looking here. These poses look really good. And so that walk looks pretty good too. You really look like you're kind of pushing over there. Again, I think the poses are looking good. Almost feeling like it's feeling like some stuff sort of pops quickly, and so I think that there just needs to be a little bit of clean up in the graph editor to really make some of this stuff not feel quite so poppy. Like it kind of hits that and then just stops. You see how the head turns and just stops. Dunk. So I think that what more than likely is going on in a lot of your curves, you've set a keyframe and then you set another keyframe just like it, a little bit further because you didn't move something, and then you move it on this next keyframe and you get that, but then you don't move it on the next keyframe. So your curve looks like that. And so what we need to do is go in here and grab some of these keyframes that are on here, right, and just shift them a little bit so you get an arc. So maybe, or so you get a little bit more ease in and ease out. This is called a moving hold. We talked about that a little bit in some of the others. But if you just scoot this down just a little bit, scoot this up just a little bit, then what happens is you hit this pose and then you kind of settle into this pose a little bit before you go this way. So what that will actually look like is a little bit more like this. Wow, that's terrible. Just draw it maybe with a smaller line. What that may look like is maybe a little bit more like that. And so it's just a little softer, and it really just, that little bit of detail will really just help kind of ease in those curves a little bit. And it just feels like that's going on a lot of this. So I think playing with the way you're hitting your poses and they stop is really just a matter of spending a little bit extra time in the graph editor. And then on top of that, maybe doing a little bit of work with how they overlap. So like the head hitting some of its poses a little later. So you'll see it here, like the way the head goes here. It's like the head feels kind of locked in place, and then it shifts and then kind of locks in place again. And so it's really just playing with how that eases in and out, and then how to put a little bit of overlap in there to loosen it up even more. So Alondra. Okay, let me come back to that one. Open with. Let me see if let's check and see if I put it on. Okay, Alondra, I may not have yours. You may need to resubmit that. So let's go ahead and look at Ali here. I'm gonna be honest. This one looks really good. There's a couple of small weight issues to worry about, but not terrible at all. So if we start here, like that feels good. Like her foot, that's because you animated it. The foot contacts the ground before the character shifts their weight over. I think it's all right to have, so we saw somebody earlier that had sort of this weight angle here on the hips. I think it's all right to have that for a step or two if you're going cautionary, or like in this case, it doesn't seem like it makes that, it doesn't seem like it hurts it too much, because it feels like you're starting to twist around, and that motion is kind of led with the lower part of this sphere. But to have every step, like now you're kind of a little bit more like this, and that makes more sense on the hips. So let's look at the weight shifts here. That weight shift, you maybe could have held it back just a frame longer before you shifted it forward onto this foot. Maybe a frame, maybe two. Maybe even longer, because this feels like you're pushing, it feels like you've pushed it all the way over that leg already and don't have anywhere else to go with this pose. So just by pulling that back and then pushing up to this point, will kind of give you a little bit of somewhere to go with it. And then that's looking good. I think you could probably hold it back over this rear foot just a little further before you get this foot down. But just a really, really small tweak there. Because you do have to kind of shift your weight over top of that leg a lot to push up. And so here maybe you would actually push just a touch further forward. Just a touch. So what you do is you go over that leg and then kind of come back up a little bit. And then I think that's a little bit broken there. Like I think you need to already have the foot kind of contacting the ground there, or something with the heel, so what you get is more like, you know, that feels alright with that because it feels like you're getting ready to catch it, but the foot feels kind of odd flat there, even though you can keep it a little bit flat, because I kind of like this flat-footed stomp you have going on, so maybe it's just you hold the body back just a touch before it gets to that point. And then this is feeling good. I can't see it from this angle, but it kind of feels like maybe you're shifting over the character's right leg a touch early there. But overall, watching this one's really close, and you got a lot of pretty good weight on there. It's also, this is a pretty good level of polish. I think you could still polish a little bit more, but well, I mean, you could always polish more, but I mean, this doesn't feel like you stopped at your, just after you finished blocking. So you need to, I think that you got a pretty good thing going on there. So let's go ahead and stop this one and maybe kick off a separate one. So let me find that. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop this and we'll record another video.